What is going on, everyone? It is Brotato. I am here with the awaited Crystalmancer guide. For those of you that don't know, Crystalmancer is an amazing class. Tons of fun. It's one of my favorites, and I'm going to go through a little bit of a rundown here in this video. There's going to be a few segments. I'm going to go through all the abilities. I'm going to go through talents. And then I'm going to go through a little bit of like a showcase for a better learning experience, visual representations a lot better. And then at the very end of the video, I'm going to go through two somewhat strategy guides where I analyze a replay of both 1s and 2s to showcase the two different playstyles of Crystalmancer. So I hope you guys liked the video, and if you do, I'd really appreciate the like and subscribe. Let's get into it, fellas. Crystalmancer Azura, one of my favorite classes and Ring of Titans. It's a pretty well-rounded class. You have plenty of mobility, plenty of sustain, and plenty of damage. I'm going to go over some abilities here. Let's jump on into Crystalmancer Azura. Your first three abilities are your Fire Crystal, your Frost Crystal, and your Pure Crystal. I'm going to go over these a little bit more in detail here in a minute. We're going to go over the other abilities first. But to simplify it, I'm going to label these as red, blue, and green crystals. Alright, so moving on. We've got our Crystal Blast, which is a stun. It deals 10 damage and stuns all enemies within 6 yards. So it's like an AoE stun, but it is a 1-second cast, so just be wary and play around that. You've got your standard barrier here. You shield yourself with 30 damage. It requires you to have one pure crystal active, but it doesn't consume it. Pretty good. You've got your standard mage interrupt here. If you catch them while they're casting, it'll interrupt them from casting the same spell for 8 seconds and any other spell for 4 seconds. But if you don't catch them while they're casting, you will silence them for 2 seconds. It's on a 25-second cooldown, so just make sure you play around that. You have your standard mage ice block here. It's a damage immunity. You can't move, you can't cast spells. Pretty standard. You've got your damage cooldown here, Crystal Haste. This one's interesting because it reduces your global cooldowns by 35% for 10 seconds. That's pretty huge when it comes to our rotation, so just keep that in mind. We have our standard mage polymorph here. It requires us to have 2 green crystals active, and it will consume the crystals, unlike the barrier. And it's a standard poly for 10 seconds. The only difference between standard mage and Crystalmancer is that it puts it on a 38-second cooldown after cast. So just be wary of that. And then our passive here is while below 30% health, you deal 30% more magic damage. This is good, but it is also something to be wary of, because I don't often tap into this extra damage, because for example, up against a warrior, around 30% health, maybe a little bit less than 30% health, but around 30% health, you're in one-shot range. So it's really tough to actually use this passive effectively, and I don't often, so just be wary of that. But let's go back up and let's cover the red, blue, and green crystals in a little bit more detail. Alright, so our red crystal and our blue crystal, the first cast of each of these has to be in melee range. Okay? Our first cast of the blue crystal will slow the target for 50%, just deal some magic damage. And our first cast of our fire crystal is just basically some magic damage. Again, like I said, they gotta be cast in melee range, so just be wary of that. Our first cast of our green crystal, however, is a blink 2. So you basically throw a crystal at somebody, it'll grab them, you'll jump to them. That will put you in melee range to be able to get your first 2 casts of this off. Basically, we want to hit the slow real quick, and then we want to just activate the fire crystal so that we can cast it at range. Now, the second cast for these 2 crystals here can be cast at a little bit more range, okay? Our fire crystal here is just a Pyrolance, basically, just a fireball, does some damage. Our second cast of our blue crystal here will root the target for an amount of time, for 8 seconds it says, and it's a slow as well for 50%. And then our second cast of our green crystal here is like a big AoE thing, kind of like a Frost Nova-ish type thing. All right. So that's just a little bit of extra damage, and will allow us to get our third cast in. Then our third cast here, our Frost Crystal, is like a big frozen orb. Okay, it travels to the target, so the optimal thing to do is to kind of be in close to melee range and then hit that. Our third cast of our Fire Crystal is like a Rain of Fire. It's just like a bunch of meteors come down, do a small amount of damage. It says it does 16 magic damage to all enemies within 8 yards, so it's like a big AoE thing, okay? And then our third cast of the Pure Crystal has to be cast in melee range, but what it will do is it will teleport you past whoever you're hitting, okay? And then our fourth cast of each of these abilities here are a culmination of all 3 that you cast previously, okay? So our Fire Crystal here will do the melee hit, it'll do the Pyro Lance, and then it will do the Rain of Fire. And then same thing for our Frost Crystal here, it'll do the melee hit, it'll do the Root and the Slow, and then it will do the Frost Orb. And then for our Pure Crystal, it'll teleport us to the target. We will do our big AoE Frost Nova, and then it will teleport us past the target. Okay? And as you can see here on the bottom, it says, unleash all Pure Crystals at 75% effectiveness. That is to say that all of these abilities on the fourth cast will do 75% of the original damage from each of the spells. So let's jump into some talents here. Go to Titan Talents. We have Crystal Mastery, Strengthened Crystals, Crystal Barrier, Mending Crystals, Crystal Breath, and Quicken Mind. Our first one here, Crystal Mastery. Your crystal spells unleash at 100% effectiveness. That changes it from only doing 75%. Now, on the fourth cast of our red, blue, and green crystals, they will do 100% of the damage as opposed to just 75% of the damage. Strengthened Crystals. Shattered Crystals now also reduces the damage you take by 30% while below 30% health, so that's basically, it just improves your passive. You're just going to take less damage while you're at less health. I personally haven't tested this. I don't really go for this too much. It could be good, but I just, I don't really care about my passive too much. I don't want to stay at low health for very long, because again, like, you're kind of in execute range, and it's just a little bit too much. Crystal Barrier. This makes your barrier not require a crystal, so you can just use it on cooldown, and it'll shield you for 45. I believe that's 15 extra damage. I tend to take this if I'm playing ones. It's nice to just have my barrier on cooldown, not have to worry about getting a pure crystal to be able to activate it. It's really great for the start of games. Then we have Mending Crystals here. Mending Crystals is fantastic. If I'm playing ones, my go-tos are usually Mending Crystals and Crystal Barrier. Okay? Mending Crystals, when used, consume all of your crystals to heal for 10 per crystal. Okay? So, as you're casting your red, blue, and green spells, you will start accumulating crystal charges. Okay? You could unleash those crystal charges by casting the fourth version of each spell, or using Mending Crystals here, you can consume those crystal charges to heal yourself for 10 per crystal. So if you have 7 charges up, then you would heal for 70 damage. It's massive, it's huge. Pair that with getting your barrier back, you're back up to full pretty often. It's a really, really, really huge self-sustaining talent. I love it. And then I'll go into a little bit more detail with this when we show rotation. But there's a unique interaction with Mending Crystals that not many people know about. So next we got Crystal Breath. So this is basically Dragon's Breath, if you're a WoW player. It's a cone in front of you that incaps for 5 seconds. Any damage will break the effect, and you could potentially get a Crystal Breath into a poly type scenario, you know what I mean? So it could be like your Rogue Mage setup comp with this here. And then lastly, we got Quicken Mind. This just changes your damage cooldown a little bit. It reduces the cooldown of each of your crystal spells by 1 second, which is huge. And then it increases your casting speed by 30%, and it lasts 2 seconds longer. So instead of 10 seconds, I believe it's 10 seconds, it lasts for 12 seconds. So you're in your rotation for a lot longer. When I'm playing 2s or 3s, and I have a healer, I'm primarily going with Crystal Mastery and Quicken Mind. Just increase damage effectiveness of our 4th cast of the crystals, and then my damage cooldown lasts longer, and also I can just rail off abilities super fast. And usually I can get about 2 full rotations of all the crystal spells during this buff. Let's jump into general talents here. I am not gonna go through all of them because I'm sure you guys know. What I primarily take here is Enhanced Power, which is a 20% damage increaser. That's a huge buff. This allows us to one-shot anybody in this game. I usually go Master of Battle. It's nice to have a decent heal here. And then in 2s and 3s, if I have a healer, I'll just take Absorption. Pretty standard. In 1s, I primarily take Absorption too, but if you have an opportunity to reset, then, Bandage is great. Meditation can be useful, but it's just, the biggest difference between these two is that this doesn't have a cooldown, and that this one does, but this one will heal you for 10 per tick every second for 10 seconds. This, every 3 seconds, you'll get 30 health. So it's just kind of use at your own discretion there. But this class is, in my opinion, kind of an all-in style of class. And if you go back to your Titan talents here, and if you're using Mending Crystals in, for example, if you're playing 1s, lots of times you don't need these two here because you're constantly healing yourself with your crystal charges. But that's all for talents. As far as runes go, just whatever you got. Increase magic damage, increase defenses. You could increase healing too. That's up to you. But now I'm going to jump into the lobby here, and I'm going to show you some rotation and go into some strategy guides and things like that. And we'll talk a little bit more about Mending Crystals and how that interaction works. Alright, so I'm going to jump into a little bit of an expose of some of these abilities here. I know I explained how these crystals work in theory, however, visual representation is often a better way to learn, especially for me. Helps me out a lot. So I'm just going to go through a rundown of these guys here. Your first cast of your green crystal is a Blink 2, puts you in melee range. Your first cast of your blue and red crystals both have to be cast in melee range. Your blue crystals is slow, your red is damage. Your second cast of your green crystal is an AoE. The second cast of your blue crystal is a root. Second cast of red crystal is damage. Third cast of green crystal will teleport you past. It also has to be cast in melee. Your third cast of your blue is a AoE, and so is the same for your red. And then your fourth cast of your blue and your red both have to be cast, and it is a culmination of all three. And then your third cast of your green crystal is you blink to the target, you AoE Nova, and you blink past the target. A little bit of a movement there, okay? And then obviously, you got your Crystal Blast, which is your stun. It's an AoE thing. Do that how you want. You got your barrier, you got your kick, you got your ice block, pretty standard. You got your Penguinify, which is your polymorph, things like that, okay? I'm gonna go over a pretty standard rotation. This is what I usually do when I'm ready to go in for big damage. Alright, so if we go to our talents here and say we're going to play 2s with a healer, alright, we're going to take Crystal Mastery and Quicken Mind. Alright, this increases our damage from our 4th cast of each of these spells here, and then it will also increase the effectiveness of our Crystal Haste. Okay, so what I'm going to do here, let's go over to this one here. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to use the green crystal to jump to, hit the blue for the slow, the red to activate for damage, hit the green for the AoE melee range. I'm going to root, I'm going to hit him with the fire, a little bit of AoE. I'm going to come in close, hit him with the blue crystal for the AoE, green crystal to teleport away, red crystal to just do some damage. I'm going to activate cooldowns here, hit him with the frost, hit him with the fire, and hit him with the green. And that's usually our one-shot execute. It's crazy. It does a lot of damage, a lot more than you might think, and it's tons of fun. So let's go over that again, and I'll try to be a little bit slower here. Green to blink to, blue to slow, red to activate for damage, green to do some damage melee range, blue to stun, basically stun, you got your root, red to activate for damage, run back into melee range, hit him with the blue for the AoE damage here, use your green to teleport away, use red at range, activate our damage cooldowns here if you have them, blue crystal, red crystal, green crystal. The reason we want to use green crystal at the end is because you teleport to, you AoE Nova, and then you blink away. That acts as kind of our execute threshold. So 3rd time's the charm. I'm going to go through it again, but this time I'm going to do it at speed to kind of give you a general understanding of how things work. Green to blink to, blue to slow, red to hit, green for AoE, blue to root, red for damage, come back into melee range once you get blue, hit green to blink away, hit red to do some damage, pop damage cooldowns, hit blue, hit red, green, and they should be dead. If there's no one that can survive that burst. I even one-shot healers. I guess that's a lie. There are people that can survive the burst, but we can talk about that in strategy and whatnot. But yeah, that's pretty much rotation. Now, in solos, I play Crystalmancer a little bit differently here. Let's go into talents and let's change some stuff up. I used Crystal Barrier and Mending Crystals here. Crystal Barrier, it's just nice to have the barrier whenever I want it. Whenever it comes off cooldown, I can use it. I don't have to have a pure crystal active. So that's really handy. And then Mending Crystals is kind of our like self-sustaining that makes us a monster. It's amazing. Okay? So basically how Mending Crystals works is, let's get some crystals activated here. I've got 3 crystals activated. Let's just activate 6. Boom, boom. Say I've taken some damage here. I'll use Mending Crystals. It consumes all of my crystal charges and heals me for 10 health per. I have 128 health. If I have 6 crystals activated, I'll heal for 60 health. That's half of my health. Okay? Have 9 crystals activated. That's 90. That's almost 100% of my health. That's like 2/3. Okay? So that's huge. Huge, huge, huge. It's also on a 9-second cooldown, so the cooldown's not that bad. But let's talk about a little bit of a different interaction here. Something that most people aren't aware of is the fact that when I am doing damage to somebody, I'm coming in here, I'm doing some sustained damage, I'm getting some damage off, hitting my slow, hitting my fire. They're pretty low at this point, you know what I mean? And if they're not like super apt on healing themselves back up or don't have a lot of self-sustain and they're running away trying to pillar play me, I can consume these crystals even at full health and it will reset the sequence of all of these abilities here. That means that I immediately have my Blink 2 again. Like, for example, if you're up against another mage with Blink, I've used my Blink, I've used a couple of my abilities here, I've hit them pretty hard, they're trying to blink away, and I want to be a sticky target. All I have to do, Mending Crystals, Blink back 2, hit them with the slow again, hit them with the fire, and just keep going back into damage. And as you can see, like, we can go through stuff here. We can go through stuff here. If needs be, I consume again. Boom. Blink 2. Really, really, really handy. So that's pretty much it for the standard rotation of Crystalmancer, pretty simple once you get the hang of it and you start to understand it. Really great class, again, lots of movement, lots of sustain with our mending crystals, and lots of amazing damage. This is a one-shot class, 100% a one-shot class. You can catch people off guard. It's amazing. It's just a very, very versatile class, and I love it. Absolutely love it. Now, if you've made it this far, and that's all you want from this content, you're more than welcome to jump out. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to analyze one of my replays here and kind of go over like a little bit of a strategy guide. So for those that are interested in seeing Crystalmancer in action, stay tuned and enjoy yourself. Alright, so here we are in a 2s. We have a healer, so I'm running my damage talents over my sustain talents. Right off the bat, I try to close the distance between me and the healer, try to get a slow off. It didn't work. I'm going to run around this corner. I'm going to activate my barrier for defensives. The healer ended up using his in-cap, which was just way wrong, and then just got into my range. I was able to slow him, able to do some AoE damage, activate my fire, my frost, I rooted him. I'm kind of running around here, just kind of like waiting it out, see what happens. Make sure to see if I need to peel, try to get the druid into a poly. I'm doing some damage here. I'm just trying to get to the final forms of my crystals. I pop damage cooldowns, hit fire, hit frost, hit my blink 2, dead. Immediately dead, just one shot. No hopes of survival at all. It's pretty disgusting when you really get into it. And let me just finish off the druid here. So as far as it goes, you know, I mean, pretty damn good class. A lot of one-shot capabilities, a lot of sustain, and you know, I think Crystalmancer is pretty fire, you know. So if you liked the video again, like I was saying before, and you made it this far, hell yeah, I appreciate you. And just like and subscribe. Maybe we'll make another one. But that's it for now. I'll catch you guys later.